Boom. What's going on, brother?
How you doing, John?
You know, Puerto Rico's sun is shining. Our birds are singing. Life is good.
Very nice. Very nice. So I usually have a co-host, but apparently he is busy. I don't know. He didn't show up. So that's fine
Oh,
though.
cool. We'll do
So
this. There's just the two of
we'll
us.
do this as a one-on-one. All right. So I just want to get into it. So, as far as in my community, you're kind of a household name already in my little niche community. But I know that you're still not that well known to the general public. I just wanted to know, like, how much bigger did you get after being featured in Gary Vee's book, Crushing It, and like, what kind of doors did that open up for you?
I wouldn't say it opened up any doors, to be honest, but it really did and continues to expose me to a lot of people because he definitely moves a lot of copies of that book. So specifically on Instagram, I would say I get messages still all the time. And it's, probably been close to a year now since the book went live of, heard about you on Crushing It, wanted to follow you and check out what you have going on and listen to your podcast. So definitely brought me a lot of listeners, definitely brought me a lot of social media followers, and definitely just kind of brought me a lot of credibility for people that are like, okay, Gary chose like 15 entrepreneurs to feature, and JLD is one of them. And I was actually the very first person he mentioned in the intro of the book as well. And the only person he mentioned in the intro, which was really cool too. So it was just, it was a great opportunity. I was really honored for it because I've been a big Gary Vaynerchuk fan and follower, and I've interviewed him a few times as well. So it was a really cool experience to be part of that book because Crush It was actually a book that's helped me in a lot of ways back in like 2009, 2010 when I read it. And to kind of like 10 years later be part of Crushing It was a really kind of cool full circle experience.
That's cool. Yeah. I mean, I didn't discover Gary Vee till about 2014, but I mean, ever since then, I've just been eating up all his content. So
Eat it
awesome.
up.
Now,
and by the way, you've already eaten up all of his content because he only says a handful of things, a few things. But the thing is,
patience, hustle.
Yeah. And he's right. He's like, listen, why would I talk about things that I'm not a believer in or an expert in? And I mean, I'm not too different in a lot of ways in that as well.
Yeah. So I want to talk about the podcast. I mean, pretty much all my questions are going to be around the podcast. So when you got started with this, were you always like a content grinder? I mean, you came into podcasting, you saw an opening to where there weren't a lot of business podcasts out there that were doing daily shows. Was that something that were you blogging daily before this, or what were you doing before podcasting? And how difficult was it for you to do the first kind of big daily business podcast, finding the guests? Like how was that back then?
So I was not a content grinder in any way, shape, or form. In fact, Entrepreneurs on Fire, the podcast, was my first venture into anything entrepreneurial. Before that, I was an officer in the Army for 8 years. I went to law school, corporate finance, commercial real estate. So I was a grinder in those fields. I was always a hard worker, and that's just kind of my personality, kind of like an all or nothing. I'm either going to go all in or just like I'm not going to do anything. I'm either going to be like the laziest person in the room or the hardest working. I'm not going to be anywhere in the middle. And I'm oftentimes, by the way, the laziest person in the room in a lot of scenarios, period, because I just decide to be.
Yeah.
But when I decide to go all in, I want to go all in. And that was just me consuming content, reading books like Crush It and other, 4-Hour Workweek books, and just saying, hey, I think this entrepreneurial thing could work, listening to podcasts, loving them, and then saying, hey, I'm all in on podcasts. Where's that daily podcast interviewing entrepreneurs? Didn't exist, saw the void, decided to be the first person to move in, which guess what? When I launched the podcast, I was the best daily podcast interviewing successful entrepreneurs. I was the worst business podcast interviewing entrepreneurs 7 days a week. I was the only daily podcast interviewing successful entrepreneurs. And that's the best part about finding a niche that's not exposed and exposing it.
That's awesome. So when did you first monetize the podcast? Did you wait a while before you started putting ads in it? Did you start that way? Or did you start with affiliate links only? What did you start with in terms of monetization?
I didn't make any money for the first 7 months. Then I started getting a couple coaching gigs from the podcast itself of other people who were thinking about starting their own podcast. Then I started getting sponsorship inquiries at about 7-8 months in for companies that actually wanted to sponsor the show, to get in front of my listeners, and to just kind of go down that road to expose their business, their brand, their products, their services. So it took about that long, but still it wasn't super lucrative at first. And it took 13 months before I kind of really financially broke into meaningful revenue. Like I think the first 12 months we did like $28,000. But then month 13, we hit over $100,000 in revenue just for that month. And that's net. I'm talking about net revenue.
Wow.
And then every month for the past 68 months now, we've netted over 6 figures in revenue every single month. And for details about that, we've published monthly income reports at eofire.com. So you can go see how we made every penny we've ever made, how we've spent it, the mistakes we've made, the successes we've had, and we've listed it all out.
Yeah, I saw that, and I was looking at March because that was the most recent one you posted there, and it looks like your numbers were down. You only made $155,405, so that must have been disappointing.
Tough month.
On 27,000 roughly in expenses, and for a net of 127. But yeah, you were down 40,000 from the month before. So
yeah,
I mean, less steak dinners or less massages. What is that? Less time at the poker table. I don't know.
I do spend time at the poker table every Friday.
Oh, you do? Really? I love poker. I'm a Texas Hold'em player. I live in Ventura, California. Well, I'm in Ventura County. So we have a card room right here. It's like 15 minutes. You can go play. It's fun stuff. So let's talk a little bit about growing your audience. I see currently you're spending about $1,000 a month on ads. Are those on, there's my co-host here. Are those on Facebook? Are those on, where are you spending the money on ads?
It always differs. I mean, just depends if we're running a JV. Like for instance, this month we're going to drop some serious coin on ads because I'm going to be one of the top affiliates for Tony Robbins' launch called the Knowledge Business Blueprint that he's coming out with on April 30th. So, we'll drop like minimum of 10, probably $20,000 on ads and just make that happen, which would be really cool. Andros, why don't you mute yourself over there so we don't hear you banging around? Does that sound good? And so do about $20,000 in ads and, really just get the word out to make sure that we're one of those top affiliates for that. But then the following month, we might spend nothing on ads. So it's just really kind of dependent month to month on what we're promoting, if we're JVing with anybody, if we want to run extra ads to Podcasters Paradise for any number of reasons. So very launch dependent.
Well, there we are. Hello, Andros. Welcome. We got about 10 minutes left here, so we gotta get moving.
Sorry for the delay, folks.
That's right. But John, I want to ask you a little bit about the journals. So you have the podcast journal, you have the mastery journal, you have was it the business journal? But the freedom. You have the freedom journal, the mastery journal, podcast journal. So were those started after the podcast? Is that something that you started after the show was started, or is that something you had going ahead of time? Tell me a little bit about the genesis of that whole thing.
So about 3 years after launching the podcast, I asked my audience, what are you struggling with? And they told me what they were struggling with, their obstacles and their challenges. And one of the biggest things that kept coming up over and over again was, John, how do we set and accomplish meaningful goals? I know a lot of your listeners, a lot of your guests that you have on are doing that. How do we do that? And so I said, let me create the solution. So back in 2016, we created the Freedom Journal, accomplish your number one goal in 100 days. We did the exact same question and answer for our next concept, which was the Mastery Journal, and the same thing for the Podcast Journal. And that's what it's all about. It's asking your audience what they're struggling with and then creating the solution for them in the form of a product or a service or a community. And that's what we did.
Yeah. It seems like that's been a pretty nice source of revenue for you. Now I want to ask you this, because I know you had mentioned something that you knew the guy that started Gimlet, it looked like in the last income report.
Yeah.
I know that Spotify has purchased Anchor. They purchased Gimlet. They just purchased another one last. What was it?
Parcast.
Yeah. So what do you think, is Spotify going to get in the competition with iTunes, do you think? I mean,
They already are. They're already in competition. They're already really chomping up massive percentage of iTunes lead, and they're already winning in a lot of countries, not the United States, but a lot of countries. And they're going to continue to do that because Spotify sees, hey, people come onto Spotify and they listen to one song, and it's called inactive listening. They listen to a song and then they go off. With podcasting, they come on, they press play on Entrepreneurs on Fire, and they listen to 45 minutes. Wow. And they're actively listening. They're engaged with that content. And that's a much more valuable earball for Spotify than you're just music listener. So
are there any strategies for growing your audience on Spotify that differ than like iTunes?
Nope. The strategy is just make a better podcast, create better content, and people might start listening to you.
Good stuff. Andros, you have a question there?
Yeah, I just wonder, like, how do you find, like your experience with podcasting? I mean, for me, I find it such a more intimate form of media with people. How do you find that people receive it over other types of media that are kind of out there or that you've been involved with?
So I think that podcasting can be special in a way because it's targeted, it's on demand, and it's free. So people are choosing what they want to listen to, when they want to listen to it, and when they want to stop and pick it back up again, and they're not paying for it. So there's kind of this feeling of reciprocity there as well, of like, wow, I'm getting this for free and it's great content and I'm enjoying it and I'm choosing to listen to it and I like it. You know, with radio, it's like, it's free, of course, but you're kind of being pushed whatever they're pushing on you at the time. So podcasting, you just kind of have this feeling of intimacy where you're literally going for a run, or you're folding laundry, or you're driving your car to work, and you're choosing to listen to this host or this interview or this true crime story, like whatever it might be. And it's just very much active listening, and that people kind of become engaged with, just like you're engaged with reading a book or watching a show on television. And that's kind of what podcasting is. So I think it is a very intimate form that people really do enjoy and feel like they get to know those people who are speaking. Like I have people who have no idea what I look like because I don't do audio, I don't do video shows, but they've listened to hundreds, if not thousands of hours of me interviewing other people and talking into the microphone and doing X, Y, and Z. And they'll come up to me at a conference and be like, oh, this is what you look like. Whatever, it doesn't matter, because I feel like I know you, like I feel like you're my friend. And that's just a very interesting dynamic.
Yeah, I saw you over at Traffic and Conversions last year, not this year, but last year you were there. So I kind of knew what you looked like because of that. That gave me the hint. Now I want to ask you about the affiliate links. Are you? I mean, you're making a good deal of money on affiliate links, and are you? And you specialize in kind of an Audible and ClickFunnels. Now, are those promoted exclusively through the podcast and through your website, like eofire.com, or do you have other sources of promotion for those? Are those also featured in your courses, or like where are you?
Yep, they're featured in our courses and all of our email newsletters as well. If anybody ever reaches out to me on social media and asks about products or services or tools or tactics that I use and it's applicable, then I'll drop my affiliate link in there for that as well. Like right now I use a great tool called Splashio for all my Instagram videos, all my YouTube videos, all my Facebook videos. And people are like, oh, wow, that's a beautiful video. And like, it has a transcription and the flames are going. And they're like, what do you use? And I'll be like, eofire.com/Splashio. And like, that's an affiliate link. So yeah, we put it everywhere we can, everywhere it's applicable. We just make it happen.
I'll have to go buy that right now.
Right now.
So I'm wondering about like, I'm wondering about your entire funnel, like as far as like generating income, because obviously for those of you out there who maybe run your own podcast, podcasting does not, believe it or not, bring in a ton of money. So what is your whole, how do you make money from doing podcasting? How would you recommend that? What would you advise someone who was starting a podcast, maybe, just was starting out? What would be the path for someone like that?
Well, the path I would say is to go to eofire.com/income. And at that page, you can look at our last 68 monthly income reports where we detail out how we've made over $15 million just through podcasting, through the podcast itself, through courses, through affiliates, through sponsorships, through all the different venues, because that is just a roadmap. That's a roadmap that we've used over the past 7 years and 2,100 episodes. And it's a roadmap that a lot of people can use for what they're doing. So whether they want to coach or whether they want to run a mastermind, whether they want to have sponsors or affiliates or create their own products and services, whatever they might want to do, that's all through podcasting. But the biggest thing that I always come back to is you need to ask your audience in a one-to-one manner, what is your biggest struggle right now? And listen to what they share. And then you decide which one of the struggles you want to create the solution for in the form of a product or a service or a community, and you create that thing. So as a podcast, what you're doing is you're building an audience, you're building a community. The community itself that's really how you're going to monetize. Everything you do is because of your listeners, your community, people that are following you. So that's the real vehicle.
Very cool. Let me ask you about I want to go a little deeper on the advertising for podcasting because
we got 2 minutes, so we can't go too deep.
All right, not too deep. I know that you did 59,000. Tell me, are you doing are the deals that you do, are they CPM based, or are you doing like private deals where they just
all CPM based?
Are all CPM based?
Yeah.
Okay. So what kind of CPM do you get? I'm just curious because I'm getting $25 sometimes. So
yeah, typically between 42 to 60 is my range.
Okay. Good stuff. I can aspire to something now.
Yeah. Hey, the fact that you have sponsors is great.
Andres, you want to give a last short question?
I just want to thank you for showing up on our humble little podcast here. And anything else? Where can we find you? What's the best place to get just so our listeners know where they can land on your page? Anything you want to pitch? Anything you want to plug right now?
Well, thank you for having me. And for myself, everything happens at eofire.com. We have great free courses for entrepreneurs on how to podcast, how to create funnels, how to accomplish goals, all at eofire.com. And of course, I'd love if you checked out my podcast, Entrepreneurs on Fire, because we're working hard over there to get better every single day.
And how many of these do you do a day? I mean, when you spend a day like this, how many of these do you do?
Between 20 to 25.
Okay. Good luck. Enjoy the next one. Thanks for being on our show, John. A pleasure. John Lee Dumas, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye.